program is reinstated.
Open sesame!
Commander Klingon vessel. We are energizing transporter beam. Now.
One, engage!
All right, hello, welcome everyone to Star Trek from the Holodeck. This is the Lower Decks edition, and I'm your host, Michael Flores, the captain. If you're new to our show, we cover a wide variety of Star Trek content, and you can find our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Just search From the Holodeck. Our preferred podcast provider is iTunes, and we'd love for you to give us a 5-star rating, as it does trigger those algorithms and help people find our show that much easier. It helps us wade through all the corporate podcasts that are now clogging up the algorithm. So we do need the assistance of the listeners in order to cut through. Give us that 5-star rating, and that will help. Okay, so I'm in studio today with Ensign David Sabal. Hello.
Hello, everybody.
How are you today, Dave?
Feeling very good and thankful there's no pack leads surrounding us, so we will not get blown up.
Thank you, Ensign. Thank you. Although I think you would offer the pack leads quite the challenge.
Challenge.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to be talking about the Season 2 finale of Star Trek Lower Decks, titled First Contact. Firstly, I want to say thank you to the Star Trek gods for giving us Mike McMahon, because I so loved how this episode turned out.
Absolutely.
And how the season turned out. But specifically with this episode, this was a classic TNG era finale. McMahon even went as far as ending the episode with a to be continued title card. How did you feel, Dave, when you saw that?
Oh, my God.
Did you get as giddy as I did?
Got so giddy because it reminded me of all the classic TNG season finale moments.
Yep.
Where you have that one moment that basically says, okay, they got past everything, but then bang, you have, you know, whether it's I am Locutus of Borg, or my favorite one to be continued was Spock coming out of the shadows, the Romulan, when you find out that Leonard Nimoy was in the TNG episode.
Yep.
To be continued. And I was like, oh, are you kidding me?
Well, dude, the moment Freeman got arrested, I was like, holy shit, this isn't going to end. And I was like, this is going to be continued. But that was like my Star Trek nerd want. I didn't really think we were going to get it. I was like, holy shit, we might get this. But I didn't think we really would. And then we did.
Well, especially since it was so brilliantly tied to the myth arc of the entire series that, you know, as an audience, we weren't paying attention to the myth arc.
Yeah.
You know, it started with Riker on the Titan.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the whole story of that got bled through the entire season, because the whole story, the whole story was about the Lower Decks. But, you know, story A, what normally would have been story A, was the thing that came back to haunt the team in the very end.
What story A, the traditional story, which let's just call story B here, the bridge crew.
Yes.
The issues they were dealing with ended up being a myth arc of sorts, and we really didn't catch it until it was over. I'm like, oh shit, this is what they're doing. They actually have a myth arc here for their season. And as it turns out, it ended up being a huge deal for the season finale. And I could not be happier, truly. I really enjoyed it. The pack-led threat, you know,
you never thought.
It's taken a turn, and someone has bombed their homeworld.
Oh, come on, Mike. Do you really think someone bombed
You think they did to themselves?
Come on.
Yeah, you're probably right.
It's them.
Oh, I'm not doubting that at all. However, Freeman has been framed for the crime. This has to do, I'm sure, with the Pack-Leds, or it could even be the Klingons. We still have that issue that needs to be wrapped. Perhaps something was set in motion before the rogue Klingon was killed. Well, however, we can, due to how this episode ended, we can expect a big season opener next year, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing that caught me off guard was that moment when she gets arrested, and they brought up the whole fact of her and Shanks, the episode that they went to the Pac-Led home planet where they kept mistaking her as Janeway.
Yeah.
And
Well, they should have arrested Janeway then.
yeah, they basically brought that one episode back to the front and said, "Hey, do you guys remember this? This was all story A or story B in that episode, and it was almost, I guarantee you, everyone when they saw that episode thought it was a throwaway thing."
Yeah.
And suddenly it comes back to haunt Freeman in the end, because Freeman did what we all agree that she treated the Pac-Led. She basically said, "You know what? They're idiots. They'll mess up their own way, and we'll get out of it in the end because of their stupidity." And I was like cracking up because everyone says, "Oh, who bombed the Pac-Led?" And I'm like going, "Really? Those
Well-
idiots probably bombed themselves."
And honestly, what would the universe really lose if they did kill themselves, bomb themselves out of existence? I think everyone would be better off. What do they offer to society? They're literally leeches.
Exactly.
That is literally what they are. They are a leech society. They're unable to do anything for themselves. They're almost like, what's the name of the aliens from the pilot of Star Trek? Remember the ones with the big heads? I always forget their name.
Oh my God, I forgot them.
Do
I
you
forgot-
remember
yes,
how
I
they
do.
became the way they are? They were handicapped and unable to do anything for themselves. That's why they wanted Pike to create a new species on their planet.
Yes.
Because they had become so advanced, they forgot how to take care of themselves and do things. That's basically what the Pac-Leds are, except on the other spectrum. The other side of that is them. You have the Pac-Leds, and then you have the pilot aliens.
Pilot aliens. But think about this, Mike. Mike McMahon essentially, throughout this entire series, or the season, has basically told us the most dangerous people out there are the stupid.
Yeah, it's true. Look at you picking up on that.
And I was like,
That's a strong social statement.
It is a strong social statement that normally, if he were to say that out loud, he'd get killed.
Yeah.
In social media.
I think the people that would be offended would be too stupid to realize he's talking to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what the beauty
In
of
fact,
this.
I'm sure Mike McMahon is actually talking to us, and we're too stupid to actually realize it, and we're thinking that he's talking about someone else.
He's talking about someone else.
All right, so tacking on to the last episode, we get that last bit of closure between Freeman and Mariner, their whole relationship and the ins and outs and how that works. The idea that they have come to terms with their differences is something that we had talked about last episode, and this feels like a continuation of that, a bit of tacking on. I love how the series uses flaws to create complicated characters that are more naturalistic. For example, having Mariner come face to face with her issues regarding her lack of friends, her inability to play nice with others, and her defensive nature, and then make her acknowledge that these things are true about her, is just a great way to show a character's progress. Because if this was last season, she would not have admitted any of those things.
Oh, never. Never.
In a properly written story, you should have characters change or attempt to change. And this is something they've accomplished all season. I know a lot of people tend to think that, at least with Western literature, that when you write a character arc, you got to have progress, right? You got to have a character recognize the error in their ways, and they then make adjustments, and they change their entire life. And that is true for the most part. But then there's other scenarios that will work in its place. For example, a character that may not make any changes, but the change is actually them understanding that they need to change, and they make an attempt to change. It doesn't mean they do. It just means they are aware of that. And that also can work in the way of true change. And I have a feeling that's what they did with Mariner. Mariner has come to accept who she is, and the fact that it may not be cool to be who she is all the time.
Exactly. And it all started with her beginning relationship with Boimler, because you just needed her to get cracked first, like an egg.
Yeah. Even in
And-
this episode, he did that.
Yeah.
He's the one that shook her out of her stubbornness.
Her
Like,
stubbornness.
listen, you need to go to the bridge. Let me do this. I believe that's what he said. I'm going to jump in the water with the dolphins.
Yes. No. They're not dolphins, Mike. They're whales. They're whales. Remember. But that was also a really cool moment too, character-wise, because Boimler at this point has been kind of like gearing up towards being more of that go-getter. Okay, I'm the serious character now. I'm not a goofball. I'm not the kid pointing at the very end of the last season. It's the Titan.
Oh, he's still that.
He's still that.
But he's learned a lot.
But he's learned a lot to the point
and
where
matured.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. You realize Boimler, Mariner, all of them, if you actually took a look at each of the characters, they're far different from where we left off at the end of season 1.
Very different.
And
they have grown as characters.
This was the one that what I felt was the most needed with Mariner. Because
the acknowledgement.
It's almost like it has been a slow burn. Like, okay, we need Mariner to finally take those steps in showing that she can't be this, I am the greatest Star Trek officer of all time. No one's better than me type of mentality, right? And they needed to break that down completely before she could actually move forward.
Yeah.
And that's why I really did enjoy the little moments when I thought it was a really smart thing to introduce that new character. I don't think it's actually even a new character, the Andorian. Yeah,
she's been around.
That Mariner interacted with. Because
it shows her actually making a change and trying to be friendly with people. Yeah.
It would have been far different if she did it with the core 4. Or the other 3.
That's her circle.
That's her
it
circle.
Wouldn't have counted, yeah.
Her stepping out and actually kind of them introducing this new buddy relationship with this new character shows Mariner is changing.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. I will say, Dave, I need a T-shirt that now reads
Ritos?
Kirk's... No, not that one. Kirk's style free spirit who kicks butt.
Yes.
And who's super intimidating because of his confidence, I believe was the second part of that.
Yes.
I would buy, I'd spend top dollar for that shirt. So get it done, StarTrek.com. Thank you. Also, Sonia Gomez is a character we haven't seen since the TNG days. If people were unaware, yes, she is a classic TNG character. She was an on-again, off-again type character on The Next Generation during its early seasons, and then she all but vanished. She was the captain of the USS Archimedes in this episode of Lower Decks.
And again,
do you
realize we got another ship?
Yeah, I know.
A brand new ship.
Archimedes. Do you remember who she was in TNG?
It took me a while, but the famous scene that she's infamous for is spilling tea on Picard.
Yeah. Picard made that motherfucker face. How dare you? Who the fuck are you? Because that was during his really mean bully years.
Yes.
When everyone was terrified of Picard for about 2 seasons.
And do you realize the significance of that, too, is like essentially Mike McMahon was taking a Lower Decks member from the Enterprise and bringing them front and center to Lower Decks. And I'm like, that was actually a really cool thing because it shows that, number one, Mike McMahon knows about the history of Star Trek and everything else, and he's willing to stick with the themes that every single person matters on those starships. Like going back and actually getting those characters like a Gomez. I'm still waiting for them to bring in Barclay. Because Barclay would be awesome.
It almost feels like it almost feels weird that they haven't yet.
And
because doesn't it feel like Barclay should actually be a full member of this show?
Oh, heck yeah.
That type of character just completely fits with this cast.
But also I could see them saying, well, Barclay's already above Lower Deck level.
Oh, he is.
He
probably is a captain by now, right? He would have to be.
Oh, my God, no. He can't be a captain.
Oh, he can be. He just needs to be with a bunch of people like him. That's it. Yeah. He can do it.
All of them are holograms.
Yes, he's the first captain of an all-holographic crew. Then he would be the best captain ever because he completely is a different person when he's around holograms.
Oh, my God, dude. That's a show. We just came up with a show, Barkley as a
That needs to be
captain.
the next comedy cartoon. Let's get it done. Now, when it comes to Sonia Gomez, I did remember her, but I couldn't place which episodes she was in. And eventually, I only remembered because of my recent rewatch of the TNG run. I had recently finished that, so the name registered, but I did have to look it up. I go to Memory. What is it? Memory Alpha
Memory
is
Alpha.
the Star Trek
Yes.
like wiki, I guess it's called. But she was attached to Geordi. That was not his love interest because Geordi never had love interests. Well, he tried.
Well, he tried.
But he was one of Geordi and Sonia Gomez were paired up in episodes because she was an engineer. And she was his first character that she was the first character that Geordi creeped out over. Because a lot of people may not realize this or even agree, but during my rewatch, I realized that Geordi was a creeper during those first like 3-4 seasons, having relationships with holodeck women, and then when he sees the real version of that character, he assumes that they have a relationship.
Yes.
And he tries to bed the lady. He is super creep dude that doesn't really know how to talk to women. And I believe Sonia Gomez was one of them, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that cracks me up is like also, I think it was in this episode, the part of this episode where Sonia Gomez basically looks at an ensign, and I think I have it written down here. She says, "I've done way worse in front of much more intimidating captains."
Yeah.
So that's what made me that was a
Yeah.
cool throwback to make us Star Trek fans go back and see, okay, where the heck did she come from? And that's how a lot of people found her, especially like me, because I had to think about it. And you're right, the Geordi connection, dude. The reason why the hot chocolate got spilled on Captain Picard 2 was because of Geordi. Because I rewatched that episode. Geordi's a dick, man. LeVar Burton, I love LeVar Burton.
He was very dismissive. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was probably the biggest dick in that show. He was very dismissive of people that wasn't supposed to be in engineering. The way they wrote him, yes, he was a bit of a dick.
He's a dick. And I remember rewatching that episode. I think it is Q, the one that's Tao Q Who. And in it is Geordi when he becomes more lovable towards the end of the Next Generation, but young Geordi, dude,
He was a weird. I mean, we're getting into TNG territory
he
here.
was a creeper,
but
just like what you said.
he was a character I don't think they fully knew what to do with in the beginning. You know, him and Worf both, because Worf was never supposed to be a major lead. It was going to be Tasha Yar.
It was supposed to be Tasha Yar.
And
yeah.
once Tasha Yar left the show, Geordi and Worf became the focus over her. They kind of split her time and gave it to the two of them.
And if you think about the only thing back then, now this sounds terrible, but like the only thing that made Geordi unique was the fact that he was blind and had a visor.
Yeah.
That was it.
And his sweet do.
And and like I think you mentioned to me off air, but like the one like myth arc of Geordi throughout the entire season of TNG at one point was
Character spine?
yeah, character spine was complaining to Worf, Data, and Wesley how he cannot find anybody.
Yeah. He was a lonely guy and he needed help with women all the time.
And that was it.
It was weird. It was strange.
It was very not just strange, it was kind of really sad.
Yeah. We're getting way off topic here. Let's bring it back.
Yes.
All the Boimler stuff was funny. I thought it was very much in character to have him be the one that is overly excited about Captain Freeman Day. All the jokes about
Oh
it
my
being for
God,
toddlers was so funny. It started with Rutherford when he said, "Isn't that a toddler thing?"
Oh, come on, dude. And you have to put the connection there. Is Mike McMahon really making fun of Picard at this point?
Oh,
Is he?
no, I don't think so. I'm just gonna say he's not. You say he is. I say
he is. Absolutely. I'm sorry. When he says, when Rutherford says that isn't that a thing for toddlers? And then remember, Picard, they made a big deal about Captain Picard Day.
Yeah. Listen, Dave, I'm happy. Listen to our pre-show now. I have worked through my trauma. I had some serious PTSD because of the season 1, Picard season 1, and I've now worked through it, Dave. So no matter how much you try to make me fall off the wagon, I won't.
I'm just saying.
I'm healthy.
Just say, but see, Mike
David,
McMahon is helping us.
Don't gamble with my health, okay? The big reveal outside of Captain Freeman being arrested, and it was some type of plot against her, was the Rutherford thing. When he deleted his memory backups, he was able to recover a memory that he thinks he wasn't supposed to see.
Yes.
In this memory, it looked like someone was programming something into him that shouldn't be there. What are we thinking, Dave? Are we thinking Section 31?
Man, if they are, Lower Decks has proven to me that basically they are not afraid to go anywhere now. So,
and this is obviously going to play a part next season. They're not going to do something like that and then not go back to it. It's going to have to be an ongoing thing.
Could you actually? That little moment to me was like going, "You're treading on dark territory." So would you actually bring those dark elements into Lower Decks? Because let's face it, Mike, Section 31, if they do something like that, they have to have those dark tones. I mean, they did. It's something that me and you have said is synonymous with that particular part of the Federation.
Yeah, they can do it. I think they can do it. Why not? As long as 90% of the show remains what it is, comedy. That's the whole point of the show. They can definitely go into a darker territory a bit. I mean, look at the amazing action sequences we had last episode, and then how this episode ended. This is a comedy, and yet it ended on I don't want to call it a sad note, but definitely
a downer.
A downer, yeah. Tendi gets promoted. And that's pretty much all we were given with Tendi. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. She's going to be part of the bridge crew now?
Yes.
How? She's Lower Decks.
Well, she got, what's the word? Promoted. She got promoted by Dr. Tayana.
Yeah, let's see how that works.
And yes, and picture that. She's not one of the first ones to get promoted to the bridge crew because Mariner's there.
Yeah.
But out of Boimler and Rutherford and her, she's the first one.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. I ultimately love what they did with this season. And just moving into final thoughts, this episode is pretty much done for today for our discussion. It's pretty simple. My final thoughts, I'm going to combine my season thoughts with this episode.
Okay.
I feel like this season made me very happy as a Star Trek fan. The show, found its legs. I guess the question is whether or not we as Star Trek fans are willing to take this show as a legitimate Star Trek series. And I feel like, yes, I know there are some people who make jokes and make comments on comment sections on YouTube and social media, and they say the funniest thing about Lower Decks is that the producers think it's canon. But it is canon. But that doesn't mean that any Star Trek fans will take it serious. And what I mean by serious, look at it as a legitimate Star Trek series. And it's a bit of a strange thing for me, being that this is an animated comedy cartoon. But if you were to go through the last 20 episode scripts, if you were to break down those scripts and trim out all the slapstick comedic elements, and you'd have a legitimate Star Trek series.
Oh, no, absolutely.
You have all the semantics of a Trek series, the things that make up a Trek series, the embodiment of what makes Star Trek. Star Trek is there, and it's properly utilized. So I started my final thoughts by posing a question, and I'm going to end it by answering that question, at least for me. And I'm going to say, yes, I feel like this is a legitimate Star Trek installment, a Star Trek series. I'm going to give this episode a 97%. And the only reason why it's not higher is because I wanted to deduct due to my own Star Trek fandomness. I wanted to be objective as much of I'm losing my train of thought here. I want to be objective as much as possible.
Yeah.
And that's why when I really like something from a fan perspective, I try to deduct some points so that it balances out and it's more fair. Go ahead, Dave.
Fair. I'm not going to be fair. I'm not going to be fair.
I know, you're never fair.
The Star Trek, this Star Trek series by far has been my favorite Star Trek series we've covered thus far.
Yeah.
I mean, Discovery's been fun, and Discovery has its moments, but I am
Wait,
not...
your favorite series we've covered so far?
Yes.
Really?
I mean, season 1 was a start.
There's
right?
less aggravation.
Less
I'll
aggravation.
give you that.
And like
We don't
Lower
get frustrated.
Decks, I come in every single episode and I'm like going, I'm having fun. I'm loving Star Trek.
That's
this
true.
is the first time in a while that I look at something and I say, oh, I don't like this. They didn't get this right, or this is not perfect. To me, this is the perfect season of Star Trek that we all needed. Because like at the end of the day, when you look at the mechanics even, Mike,
Yeah.
Mike McMahon still made a lot of his story elements, even from the first season, still come into play. When I gave him props when Boimler comes back from the dead and he mentions about the koala, and all of a sudden, that's the same what happened in season 1 with Tendi and the guy who achieved enlightenment.
Yeah.
I appreciate that because that's part of like how
It's the show's continuity.
continuity. The
Yeah.
continuity is the greatest I've ever seen because every single moment matters. And this is the thing that I've always been wondering if Mike McMahon would bring this type of energy that you get from Rick and Morty, where you watch Rick and Morty and you watch it multiple times and you find little things. And every little thing matters in every single episode. And he does. In this particular season, he's done this as like a masterwork of how to do it. And I honestly feel that Lower Decks has turned into my number 1 series that I loved.
Oh.
And this season by itself gets 100 for me. When it comes out on Blu-ray, you're damn right I'm going to buy it. It's going up on the shelf. And any Star Trek fan...
What are you giving this episode?
This episode, I'm giving a 98.
And you're giving the season 100%?
100%. Because, like...
I think that contradicts all your other scores, but you know what? I guess in retrospect, you have to go back.
You have to go back and you have to actually put everything together. And then once you actually put the pieces together, I began to realize all those questions I had is like, well, why did he do this? Well, he did this because 3 episodes later, he does it to further his story forward.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not going to argue with you at all. I mean, it is interesting that you're saying this is the best. That's hard for me to say. I do feel like it is a Star Trek series, but it's also something very different. Maybe that's just my own hang-up. I can't reconcile live action versus animation. It's really hard for me to do that, but you are also an animation guy, so it's possibly easier for you to do that.
Oh yeah, because like to me the animation can be just as strong as live action. I mean, the closest thing I've gotten with vibes of this was Discovery season 2. Discovery season 2 for me is also my favorite moment for
that's
Star Trek.
Yeah, that's my favorite. That's my favorite season of this entire new era of Star Trek.
But the weird part was when I took a look back doing my notes for this, I took a tally of how many times in Discovery Season 2 compared to Lower Decks Season 2, how many times did I have like that head scratching, what's going on here? I had it more with Season 2 of Discovery. And that's why I gave this one, this is my pass. I can't find anything wrong with this one.
Listen, Dave, that's fair. I like those thoughts. This does bring us to the end of our Star Trek The Lower Decks coverage for this year. Another season has gone by, and we are revving up now for Prodigy. So we are not leaving. We will be here holding your hands throughout the winter seasons. And I still have to talk to you about it, Dave, but except for a few weeks because of holidays, we are going to be here. So November comes around, we won't be here. We will be behind in our coverage of both Prodigy and Discovery. And then during Christmas time, we're going to be out for 2 or 3 weeks, so we'll be behind on the coverage, but we will catch up and we will do them. We will put them out. So we are here for the long haul for the next, 3-4 months of Star Trek. In fact, it wasn't our calculations that with Picard's release as well,
Yes.
which was, February?
Yes.
That we'd actually be here for the next March. April is when we'd be done. So that's continuous Star Trek discussions from now until about March. So if you want to help us not be so stressed out when we do these shows, I would love for you guys to please go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/RaymanDigital, and pledge. If you pledge $3 to our behind the scenes tier, you'll gain access to our pre-shows that we do pretty much before every discussion, every Star Trek discussion, and we talk about random Star Trek news, things that we're going to be doing, thoughts here and there about different Star Trek series. We never run out of things to talk about when it comes to Star Trek. It is quite surprising.
Oh, yeah.
And then we have the $5 tier, and when you get that tier, you'll gain access to everything in the $3 tier and all of our full-length podcast discussions. And we've done thousands of hours of additional Holodeck shows that are only available on Patreon. So please, you help yourself and you help us stay on the air. We do need your support if we are to continue to do shows. Patreon.com/RaymanDigital. I want to thank everyone for listening and sticking with us through this season's discussion. Thank you, David.
Thank you. Live long and prosper.